So the decision has been delayed with regard to the proposed route for I-49 through our city.
A cynical man would say,
You get
wow,
straight at it, don't you?
Yeah.
I tell you. I mean, didn't even offer me a cup of coffee yet.
Oh,
Gee
Matt hooked him
whiz.
up.
a cynical man would say, wow, the first delay. Why this one?
Well, I will tell you that the environmental process is a very prickly process. And so our federal partners, as I understand it, and I've not had a full brief on it just yet, but our federal partners had some concerns about the process that they went through. And the processes of NEPA are designed to protect the interest of all. And so that was the reason of the delay.
Is it in the end, and I hope I'm wrong, and I know you'll correct me if I am, in the end, is the reason nobody wants to make a decision below the level of the federal government is because they don't want to make the decision that the federal government doesn't want?
No, I think the issue is they don't want to make a decision that is going to complicate the project overall. Most importantly, we have to get it right the first time. And we've got projects where historically we've not done the right process, or we've not followed the right process, and it delayed tremendously. And 3241 is the example of that
But
project.
it's such a complicated process. It's so confusing. Who knows what the process is anymore?
Well, we've got experts who understand the process, and believe it or not, the process gives you some frameworks, but it also is contingent upon the information that we have to assess. So when we make a decision, it's based on traffic, it's based on environmental conditions, it's based on all kinds of things, and that is the process that we have to do our due diligence to get through.
This delay is going to take it till after the first of the year. There are some cynical people who will say this takes it after the election, could have a change in the White House with regard to structure, et cetera. Will that have any play in your view as to this route?
Really. No, not really, because this is in law. It's not an administrative decision. This is not going to be decided by the president or Congress. It's already in law what that process is. And
so
the
who
delay,
decides?
Who decides?
Who is the one that has to sign off and say, here's the route?
Federal Highways. Federal Highways.
Is there one guy?
There's a process, and there's one. There is someone who's the head of FHWA and what that process is, and those are our partners who are going to manage that process. But this is the most important thing.
Pardon me. Are they your partners who are telling you what to do?
No, they are not telling us what to do. They are our partners that we engage in a daily conversation, not just on this project, but all kinds of projects around the state.
One other thing on this, I know we want to talk about highway funding, but when you have a situation like you do here in Shreveport, where you don't have agreement, where you have two pretty large factions in a community that disagree, what happens then? How is that weighed?
Well, that's part of the process. And so we need to make sure that we are weighing all of the interests and all of the factors involved on all sides, not just on the sides of those who are for, those who are against, but also on the side of government, on the side of what is the best informed decision based on data, not based on just opinions of the various stakeholders.
Does Dr. Wilson have an opinion on which way 49 should go?
Dr. Wilson has an opinion that I like to build infrastructure, and it's not Dr. Wilson's decision on where it goes. We have the same issue in South Louisiana. So I don't get to make that decision on where I want it to go. So I want to just build it. In order to build it, we have to be able to finance it.
Some say it's old technology now to keep building interstates. That's the old way to do things. We should build boulevards and It's
the mall. It's the highway of malls, or the mall of highways.
You're one of these new guys.
I am a new guy. I do believe that infrastructure should be, like Secretary Fox says, a piece of furniture that you can be proud of, that has utility, that is attractive and represents who you are. I will also tell you that we have to have an interstate. When you look at the volume of truck traffic, when you look at the mobility, when the vast majority of freight tonnage in this country is moved less than 100 miles from origin to destination, you can't do that type of work on just a boulevard. You have to have an interstate that provides expedient travel, safe travel, expected travel in terms of access, and that is what we have to do with the interstate.
Okay,
hold the thought, because if we go to break now,
we're gonna do my sound effects, because I'll often go to Dallas. And I come back to Louisiana, and we have issues.
Plus, I have questions that make sense. Dr. Shawn Wilson is the secretary of Louisiana Department of Highways,
He's the head cheese.
Department of Transportation, Dr. Shawn Wilson.
You got it right.
Well, if you don't think, you can. I'm okay. I want to talk for a second, because Aaron is going to be chomping at the bit to ask you. You'll see. But let's get to the
You're
easy.
scaring him.
I hope so. The flooding down south has to, as far as roads and infrastructure, pardon my use of, it's got to be a freaking nightmare for a state that doesn't have any money right now. And I can't give us an update on what kind of, I mean, we see the pictures of people's houses and the trash down by the streets, but the infrastructure, the roads, and how are we going to repair for that? How extensive is that damage?
Well, I can tell you right now that the damage that we're going to get a bill for just for roads from this flood comes to about 12 to $15 million. Those are just state roads. Those are not local roads and bridges. From the March flood in this area, we had about a $14 million impact just on state roads.
Is that
not
generally
local
a
roads.
conservative assessment?
No, that's a factual. The $14 million is a factual assessment that we go out and actually do inspections, price out the cost to repair, and we get that dollar amount. Now, here is the trick of this. The federal government has what's called the Emergency Response Fund, the ER fund, if you're a federal or state road. We have an opportunity to get our dollars back from them, and it's 100% within a certain period of time, and then it drops down to 90% after a time, similar to what happens with FEMA dollars for infrastructure. So we're going to be asking the federal government to pay us the $10 million or the $14 million from March, and then the other 12 to 14.
So, pardon
that we're
me,
going
it
to get.
behooves us to repair rapidly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Not just because of the fact of who's paying for it, but the importance of getting people back to their normal lives, to get kids back to school. Just yesterday, we opened a bridge on US 190 in Walker that the entire substructure was washed away. And you see those guardrails that stick down in the ground? Well, they were sticking down in the ground, and you could walk under the guardrail themselves that was embedded in the earth that got completely washed away. And so we were able to use DOTD forces. In fact, it was a bridge crew from David North's district that went down from Shreveport to help folks down in Walker, Louisiana, get this US 190 bridge back open. And this morning, to the dread of many students, they're on school buses crossing that bridge.
Let me ask you this. When John Bell Edwards was here, we were talking transportation funding a few months ago. And here's my quick story. Go to Dallas often, drive back from Dallas, and we're driving back, and it's...
I'm sorry, how is it again? That's what I thought.
Sound effects.
We hit the state line, and we get... You follow me?
I understand.
I'm being stupid.
No, I understand.
But we have that problem across the state. What are we doing in transportation funding? We have such a backlog of projects.
Well, here is the challenge with transportation funding. When we started paying for infrastructure with a gas tax, it was nearly 27 years ago, and it was a flat tax of 16 cents, and it was not indexed for inflation. Construction has increased, the cost of maintaining our roads have increased, but the revenue has not increased. And in addition to that, believe it or not, the efficiency of vehicles have increased. So what used to be a 12 to 15 gallon, a 15 mile per hour vehicle is now maybe a 20 to 25 mile per hour per gallon vehicle, I should say. And so as a result, the numbers just aren't working. And so we are really in a preservation only state, and we're not doing enough to maintain the roads we have.
So I asked this sort of tongue-in-cheek, so circuitously, I'm hurting the state by driving a 44-mile-to-the-gallon hybrid.
Using the model that we use to fund transportation, I would say yes.
How much more of a gas tax would you propose?
Well, we are discussing that, and that's why we're here in Shreveport today, is the governor has created a transportation task force. It's about 18 members from around the state, and from North Louisiana, you have Greg Morrison, who is there, and as a result, we're going to be hearing from the public, hearing from the local businesses and community leaders to say, what are they willing to pay? Because I can tell you, there's never going to be enough money. We've got a $13 billion backlog. Those are just projects we should take care of because they're already built. And then there's another $10 to $15 billion of projects that we want.
Pardon me, should I be scared that somebody from state government just said to me, there's never going to be enough money?
No, because that's the fact. There's never going to be enough money to build everything. We've got $25 billion right now in maintenance needs and new construction needs. I can't charge the public enough to pay for all of that today. Now, if you give me some money and you manage it and you index it so it can keep up with inflation or keep up with fuel efficiency, over time you can do that. Take I-49 North, for example. 12 years ago, we stood up at Mara Murtis and broke ground, and today we stand here building the last segment to get to 220 that'll open in late 2017. As a result of that 12-year investment, we had to have ongoing revenue sources to be able to pay for it. That's how you build infrastructure. You don't pay for it all at once. You just have to build it, but more importantly, you have to maintain it over time, just like you do your roof. You're not going to wait until the roof falls off before you build it. You're going to go in and do patchwork, or you're going to do painting, or you're going to put some new shingles before it gets really bad. And unfortunately, we've built a system in this state that's 16,000 miles of road that I'm responsible for, and I do not have the money to take care of all 16. Here's a good example. It will take over 400 years. Let me get that right. No, 400 years to replace every bridge, even if it has a life cycle of 45 years.
Speaking of bridges,
And
are we going to
that's
get a Jimmy Davis bridge
You are going to get a Jimmy Davis bridge, and that's another good example.
in my lifetime?
You will get it in your lifetime. Now you can't go out and get run over by a bus tomorrow, because then
Right.
you would have made me a liar.
Start working out.
What I will tell you is, instead of us spending the $8 to $9 million to maintain a 2-lane bridge that's already over capacity, we decided that we want to look at building the bridge that you need. You need 4 lanes there. So if I maintain that road, I'd have to go out and build another road, and it's going to take me twice as long than to build one bridge that's 4 lanes. And so that's the type of decision that we want to make, or this administration will make, is we want to build things that are going to be sustainable. We want to do the right thing the first time and not just manage on a patchwork approach.
Erin has a bumper sticker on her car that says, "Hug a barn swallow today." I just wanted to pass that along to you.
Well, there's some other things you could do with barn swallows, but we couldn't do that because the feds were watching us.
Yeah, they wouldn't let me shoot them. I tried.
Hey,
Dr. Shawn Wilson, Transportation Department Secretary, thank you for being with us this morning.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you,
look
sir.
forward to coming back soon.